In a quiet corner of the ancient world, there lived a man whose heart beat with the remembrance of Allah even before the world had tasted the noise of modern corruption. He was a prophet, yes, but more than that, he was a man who understood what it meant to carry the weight of people's hearts and the silence of their sins. His days were not filled with ease, they were carved by struggle. His nights were soaked in tears. But in each trial, there was a strange, divine comfort, for he never walked alone. He lived in a time when darkness was creeping into people's souls, when truth had to be whispered rather than shouted. People had begun to chase the world and forget the one who created it. In that time, walked not with the crowd, but against it, gently, patiently, with the firmness of a mountain and the humility of dust. He preached righteousness, honesty, and repentance. But the people laughed, ignored, and sometimes insulted him. Yet he never stopped, not because he was stubborn, but because he was deeply in love with Allah. And love never lets go. There were nights when even a prophet would feel the weight of it all. He would climb to a high place, alone under the stars, where the heavens felt near. There, he would raise his hands and whisper du'a, not in eloquence, but in brokenness, the kind of brokenness that only Allah hears completely. Ya Allah, guide them, cleanse their hearts, and strengthen mine, so I never stop carrying your message, even when no one listens. The people began to see in something unexplainable. His face was radiant with a peace they could not understand. It wasn't wealth, he had none. It wasn't power, he sought none. It was something deeper. It was the nur that comes only from loving Allah sincerely. Slowly, the hearts of the sincere began to soften. They came to him, not for fatwas or fame, but for healing, for truth, for Allah. Still, the path wasn't easy. One day, a young boy from the town, whose heart had been touched by his words, came crying. His father had been abusive, refusing to let him pray or speak of God. Placed his hand gently on the boy's head, his eyes full of mercy, and said, "Every hardship is a door to Allah. Walk through it with Sabr, and you will find him waiting on the other side." It wasn't a poetic line. It was truth. Truth that had lived. He knew what it meant to cry alone in sajda, to feel like you're the only one holding onto the rope of Allah while the rest of the world lets go. He knew the beauty of persistence, not just in prayer, but in patience. Years passed, trials increased, and yet, he grew more radiant, more spiritually awake. The people who once mocked him began to soften. The whispers turned into questions. The questions turned into tears. And the tears turned into repentance. Slowly, like a garden in spring, the community around him began to bloom with faith again. Not because he forced them, but because his own transformation was so real, so sincere, it awakened theirs. The power of his du'a wasn't in the words, but in the state of his heart, broken before Allah, yet whole in surrender. In his final days, as he sat beneath a tree, watching the sun melt into the horizon, he smiled. Not because life had been easy, but because it had been worth it. He had trusted Allah when it made no sense to the world. He had walked through storms and never let go of the rope of faith. And now, he was at peace. It is said that Allah raised to a high station, not just physically, but spiritually. And that is the reward of those who persevere in truth, who speak even when their voice trembles, and who worship Allah not for what he gives, but for who he is. Let this be the echo of his because in patience, there is power. In du'a, there is movement. And in trusting Allah, even when the world stands against you, there is ultimate victory.